Sev Omnis, and this is sixth part of Ukrainian Lost Media iceberg. So let's go. Vendeta. All the action in the film takes place in the early 1920s in a village called Velикій. During the division of church land, a cherry tree was planted on the border that separated all possible plots of land for a priest and a deacon. The tree, which at first did not attract their attention, unexpectedly bore beautiful juicy fruits 2 years later. Father Sylvester argued that, by his angelic rank and pastoral seniority, the cherry harvest belonged entirely to him. Deacon Gordy insisted on equality and division. Thus began a bloody feud between the clergy in the village of Великій. Status, fully lost.
Варення з полуниці.
Strawberry Jam is a 1929 Ukrainian animated film, a joint production of the Kharkiv Society of Friends of Soviet Cinema and the Kyiv Film Factory VUFKU. The cartoon was made using the puppet animation technique. The total length of the film is 122 meters, which is approximately 3 minutes and 20 seconds. The film is one of the first Ukrainian puppet cartoons. As of 2020, the film is considered lost. Status, fully lost.
Ясно.
The Mange is one of the artistic documentary essays about the little ones, for the big ones. The author of the Mange decided to unite the director and the cameraman, namely about a detailed acquaintance with different material and different filming techniques. This film has not survived to this day. Status, fully lost.
Темницництво.
Pre-revolutionary Russia. In one of the small provincial towns lives a family of butchers. The butcher is a rather despotic, stupid, and bestial person. He brings his own wife to the grave, turns his son into a haunted subject. At the cemetery, during the burial of his wife, whom he killed, a beautiful girl catches the eye, meek and shy. It exactly fits the description of a treadwife. The butcher forces her to marry him. Knowing that the girl is his son's fiancée, the son leaves the family, starts drinking, and because of this becomes homeless. But it is not the son's fate that worries the butcher. Nothing can disturb his animal essence. The film has not survived to this day. Status, fully lost.
Коли співають солов'ї.
According to the plot, the main character of the film is Mariana Cadlia, who is the best milkmaid on the collective farm called Trud, and at the same time quite actively criticizes the head of the collective farm, the conservative Timofey Timofeyevich Zaveryuka. For this, she is assigned to work with the worst cows on the collective farm. In contrast to her is the milkmaid Katya Kvitko, the record holder for all milk yields on the collective farm. It is she who supports the head of the collective farm in every way. Katya, constantly busy with public affairs and therefore paying little attention to her direct duties, quarrels with the zoo technician Vasil Moros, who is in love with her, and with her friend Mariana. As a result, the record-breaking cow Cherivnitsia dies due to her own negligence.
Lviv говорить.
As you might have guessed, this is a film about Lviv. After a thorough search in Los Angeles, we found a part called Jordan in Lviv, which was filmed in the 1930s. Status, partly found.
Буряк допоміг.
The Beet Helped is a 1926 feature-length propaganda film about the development of beet growing in the countryside. This film was Arnold Kordian's debut directorial work. The film was shot in 4 villages in Vinnytsia region under the following names: Horizontsy, Selish, Hanivan, and Mojalivka. The film was shot from May to July 1926 because the entire plot had to be shown. There is still no information about the film's release. The film has not survived to this day. Status, fully lost.
Український танок.
Ukrainian Dance of 6 miniatures on Ukrainian folk themes for piano, translated for violin and piano. Since it was released during World War II, everything is clear here. It could not have been preserved due to bombing, shelling, fire, or similar methods. Status, fully lost. Conversation. Conversation is also known as the story of a commoner, a Ukrainian film from 1928. According to the plot, there was a small Ukrainian town during the NEP era. In one of the houses, where mostly small traders lives a trim depot carriage driver named Vera, a girl who is a quiet and modest person. She sincerely loves a driver named Alexei, and evil neighbors who claim her living space incite the local hooligan Sasha to persecute Vera and spread dirty gossip about the girl. Even Alexei begins to believe this gossip, and yet the neighbors fail to get the girl out of her room. Angry, they incite Sasha. The girl is seriously injured from a stone he threw at Vera's window. Vera is taken to the hospital. Alexei helps the girl recover. They are together again. The film has not survived to this day status, fully lost.
Хлопчик з табору.
The Boy from the Camp is a 1957 Ukrainian film. It was directed by Yakov Kulish and filmed at the Odessa Film Studio, the first years of Soviet rule. Little Rama Stepkai and his father Pavel lead a learned bear through the villages. Vikula, the owner of the animal, threatening to take the bear away, forces Pavel to steal the village horses that are being sold at the fair. However, Pavel fails to steal the horses, and the village boys catch him and beat him to death. Status, fully lost. McDonald. McDonald is also known under the other title The Adventures of McDonald and the Story of One Treaty, a Ukrainian silent, but at the same time propaganda film by Les Kerbas. The plot is a caricature of Ramsay MacDonald, who logically hated the USSR and the politics of that country. Status, fully lost.
Мертва петля.
Dead Loop is a Ukrainian film by the Ukrainian Film Academy of the Ukrainian Academy of Sciences in 1929. According to the plot, a girl from the town, Alina, fell in love with a pilot, Victor Lehovy. Blinded by the romantic aura of his profession, Alina did not immediately see in him a petty, vulgar, and provincial Don Juan. Gradually, she became disappointed in him. However, after Alina's successful performance at the general meeting of the Soviet branch, of which she became an activist, Victor unexpectedly fell in love with her. But it was too late. The unfortunate heartthrob began to drown his grief in alcohol. Once, with a hangover, he made a mistake in the air and crashed along with the plane. The funds, which were collected at the call of Alina by the members of the Soviet branch, went to build a new plane. Status, fully lost. Spartak. I'm not talking about one Ukrainian scandalous personality, but about a film that was filmed based on the novel of the same name by Raffaello Giovagnoli. Now let's move on to the plot. It all started with the owner of a gladiator school buying two slaves for work, the Thracian Spartacus and the Gaul Artorix. Spartacus even managed to win the audience's sympathy in the Colosseum from the very first fight, and also gain his freedom. Over time, the dictator solidifies. Spartacus manages to camp near Vesuvius with the rebel slaves, which means that the Roman commander Crassus is no longer the main character's camp. In the end, Spartacus and Artorix die in battle because their camp betrayed them, because Crassus stormed them. So the premiere was on December 7, 1926 in Kyiv. Here the status of fully lost justifies itself.
Борці за волю.
This is such a lost media that only those who were there know it firsthand. Judging by the title, you can understand that the plot is about the independence of Ukraine. Status, fully lost. S.T.A.L.K.E.R PSP Edition. S.T.A.L.K.E.R PSP, also referred to as S.T.A.L.K.E.R PSP and S.T.A.L.K.E.R Shadow of Chernobyl PSP is an unannounced cancelled project by GSC Game World to port the S.T.A.L.K.E.R series to the PlayStation Portable game console. It is a post-apocalyptic 3D action game with a third-person view and a linear plot. At the time of development, the game was oriented towards the technical specifications of the PSP 100 model. Status, unreleased. Mazeppa. Mazeppa is a Ukrainian silent feature short film by Pyotr Chardinin, based on a poem by Julius Slavatsky. The plot of the film was based on various mythical love affairs of Ivan Mazeppa when he was a bedchamber at the court of the Polish king Jan Casimir. Their origin is connected with the conflict that occurred between Mazeppa and the nobleman Jan Pasek. In 1661, Pasek maintained secret relations with the Confederates, who opposed the king. Mazeppa was forced to inform his overlord about this as a loyal servant. As a result, J. Pasek was arrested, but he managed to convince the judges of his innocence. Status: fully lost. Toaster unreleased songs. Yes, there was a band called Toaster. If it's too short, here's more than one unreleased song from this band. All because they released it on cassettes and CDs. Status: fully lost.
Гуцулка Ксенія.
Гуцулка Ксенія is a Canadian film adaptation of the operetta of the same name by Yaroslav Barnik. The premiere of the same film took place on January 22, 1956. The film was created at the Orbit Film Corporation studio. Status: partly found.
Цемент.
Demobilized Hlyb, a former worker, returns to the ruined cement factory. He has one task: to restore the factory and launch the production of cement, which is badly needed for industrialization. However, it is not easy, as the staff is demoralized by unemployment. Old and new bureaucrats create obstacles, money and materials are lacking, and disguised class enemies undermine the restoration works. This film is based on the novel Cement by the Russian writer Fedor Gladkov. The work was written in 1920 and published in 1925. Later, it was considered one of the first samples of a production novel. It was quite popular with the readership and received favorable reviews from Gorky and Lunacharsky. David Marion's script was approved by the Higher Repertoire Committee on the 28th of December 1926. The shooting began on the 10th of February 1927 and finished on the 16th of July 1927. The first premiere was on November 21, 1927 in Kyiv. This film has not survived to this day and therefore status is fully lost.
Бітоха magazine from Kharkiv.
This is more likely a rock scene that was published in Kharkiv. All because there was quite a bit of censorship regarding the official publication. Therefore, there was a situation where there was a demand for this genre. This scene was started because at that time various rock bands were quite actively appearing in Kharkiv. However, there is information that Serhiy Koratkov was one of the editors of this zine. He worked under the nickname Carrot Cow. If you want to find up-to-date information about the author of that zine himself, he died on January 31, 2010. Status is fully lost.
На слідах українських піонерів.
This is one of the last works of Ulis Samchuk, In the Footsteps of the Pioneers, in which the main and most notable phenomena of Ukrainian life in America are collected and reduced to a common denominator against the background of its history and geography in the order and chronology of their importance. Life facts, free thought and artistic expression are combined into one coordinated moral and philosophical concept. The entire autobiographical nature of Ulis Samchuk's prose work reached its logical conclusion in journalistic works that tell about the events of World War II after 12. On a white horse, on a black horse, the life of Ukrainians in camps for displaced persons. Planet DP, the Ukrainian community on American soil within the framework of the Ukrainian People's Union in the footsteps of the pioneers. Status: fully lost.
Кочубей в темнице.
This is a 1907 film about Kочубей, who according to the plot was in prison. Status: fully lost. It's about how Ukrainians live in the United Kingdom. She told me quite briefly. Status: fully lost. The Forbidden Parrot. The Forbidden Parrot is a completely lost Ukrainian animated film from 1937. It was directed by Ippolit Lazarchuk and was shot at the Kiev Film Factory, Ukraine Film. According to the plot, a Soviet steamship arrives at the port of a fascist country. The most beloved member of the team, whose name is Papuga and who can talk for no reason, is the first to get ashore from this steamship. He flies around the city. He manages to get into random houses that he sees. At this time, he manages to say all the phrases that he is used to hearing in Odessa, because this is his hometown. All the lines turned out to be quite insipid, but at the same time satirical comments on fascist speeches. Because of this, the police chase him through the streets and ban him. Because of this, the parrot runs away home. Status: fully lost.
Пісня Мазепи.
Mazepa's Song is a film that was shot by the Ukrainian diaspora in Canada, but is a lost color feature film from 1960, directed by Lev Orly Horacelenko. The film was shot on 16mm film and released by the Aurora Film Company. The approximate duration of the film is 67 minutes. The premiere of this film took place in April 1960 in Montreal, Canada. The film met with a mixed reception among the Ukrainian emigration. Yes, it was highly appreciated by Canadian Ukrainians for its message and plot. It was a joy to see a simple, strict story about our native people, about our soon-to-be Ukraine. There are no jokes, tense situations, exaggerations in the film. Everything is so simple and clear, and it creates the impression of persuasiveness, of life's plausibility. Noe, May 30th, 1960. The film has great moral and ethical value, causes much reflection, arouses hatred for the enemy. Noe, May 30th, 1960. The film Mazepa's song is replete with touching facts from the life of a Ukrainian village on the eve of the famine organized by Moscow in Ukraine. Considering that S.T.A.L.K.E.R, producing his films, personally heads the entire technical and artistic process, he can be considered a pioneer of free Ukrainian cinema in Canada. Faith and Culture, p. 1011, 1960. The film Mazepa's song arouses interest with its reality, clarity of images, and patriotic content. Post-up, June 12, 1960. At the same time, the film was received much worse by the circles of the Ukrainian emigration in the USA. The worst signs of the film Mazepa's song are that, in winding it up, or rather editing it, the author and director-producer neglected the most primitive principles of cinematography. Individual scenes do not fit, they have many misunderstandings, contradictions, and simply absurdity. If we are talking about the sound, then it does not withstand the slightest criticism. M.V. Dolnitsky, For a Sense of Responsibility America, 26/3/1961. Without a clear literary script and a good, but really good director, who would really be able to make a good full-length art film with limited means, there will be no work. Kulish. Mazepa's song by Lev Orly-Hora, Kiev, Part 2, 1961. Status, fully lost. Exhibit from the Panopticon. Exhibit from the Panopticon is a Ukrainian film from the 1920s, shot at the Odessa Film Studio. This film tells the story of the pain of a white immigrant who returns to Soviet Russia. Zemsky activist Gorodinsky, who is an immigrant during the Civil War and returns to his country. All these 10 years that he was abroad, he was waiting for him. His entire family greets him sincerely and with love. But the further he goes, the more Gorodinsky's hatred for the new government grows. Because of his own anger, he drives his family away. He beats his wife, tries to kill his son engineer. Patience breaks in, the whole family drives Gorodinsky out of the house. At the end of the film, we are no longer a living person. By overflow, Gorodinsky turns into an exhibit from the Panopticon. Status, fully lost. Wandering Stars. Wandering Stars is also known as Wandering Stars and Wandering Stars, a film based on the story of the same name by Sholem Aleichem. According to the plot, a talented violinist Lev Rotkovich lives in a small Jewish town. He was in love with a Jewish girl, Rachel, but her father does not allow him to marry a beggar. Lev emigrates to Europe and after long wanderings and failed attempts becomes an outstanding violinist Leo Rogdai. Over time, he becomes a star for the impresario Maffei. On tour in one of the cities, Leo meets Rachel, who was forced to emigrate abroad for political reasons. Yes, she was the same girl he was in love with. Wandering Stars reunite. The film premiered on January 4, 1927 in Kiev. Status, fully lost. The Girl from the Deck. The Girl from the Deck, also known by the familiar name Polundra, is a Ukrainian film from 1928. According to the plot of the film, which was borrowed from the story of the Russian writer Alexei Navikov Pryboy Woman at Sea, about a woman who won the right to become a sailor. Sailors from a large sailing ship rescue a girl fisherwoman Olya. Her longboat sank in the open sea. The girl remains on the ship, which is going on a long voyage. Over time, Olya begins to do the same work as other sailors, and even during a storm she behaves like a real sea wolf. The capable girl is noticed by the assistant captain Shadab. He begins to teach Olya seamanship. The presence of the girl on the sailing ship causes discord among the crew. Everything ends peacefully when the crew learns of the sincere mutual love between S.T.A.L.K.E.R and the captain's assistant. S.T.A.L.K.E.R is sent to study at a maritime school. Later, after graduating, the girl navigator makes her first independent voyage. Status: fully lost. Forest Beast. Forest Beast is a 1925 Ukrainian film, which was shot at the Odessa Film Studio. The film itself lasted between 123 and 139 minutes, since the film is 25-60 meters long. The film was based on the story of the writer immigrant Dmitry Busko, who at one time himself participated in the fight against the real Semyon Zabolotny. In addition, the film starred real witnesses of the Temenz's activities and the Red Army men who fought with him. So we can say that this film was created based on real events. The film premiered on June 17, 1925 in Kyiv. Status: fully lost. Mazeppa. Mazeppa 1914 is a silent feature short film by Pyotr Chardinin, based on a poem by Julius Swatsky. It is better for Poles to rewind to the next moment, because there is information that may offend or outrage. The plot of the film was based on all the mythical love affairs of Ivan Mazeppa available at that time, when he was a bedchamber at the court of the Polish king Jan Casimir. Their emergence is associated with the conflict that occurred between Mazeppa and the nobleman Jan Pasek. In 1661, Pasek decided to maintain secret relations with the Confederates, who were opposed to the king. As a loyal servant, Mazeppa was forced to inform his overlord about this. As a result of this denunciation, J. Pasek was arrested, but he managed to convince the judges of his innocence. Status: fully lost. On the Eve. This film is based on the stories of Alexander Kuprin Gambrinus. According to the plot, on the outskirts of the city, where the Jewish poor lives the main character, whose name is Sasha. To speak briefly about him, the main character is a musician by vocation. Most of the time he played the violin. When this musical instrument falls into his hands, it begins to cry and laugh, as if alive. Such is the guy's talent for music. The year 1905 is approaching. Sasha unconsciously gravitates towards those people who strive for freedom. The Black Hundredth soldier Molina hates Sasha because he plays various revolutionary melodies on the violin. Meanwhile, a war begins between Russia and Japan. You can definitely Google it to understand the historical background of the plot. Because of this, Sasha ends up at the front. He is wounded. Therefore, he returns home. And again, revolutionary melodies begin to sound in the northern sky. The musician challenges all the pogromists and executioners. Molina and several others like him brutally deal with the violinist. After the massacre, only a bloody body and a shattered silent violin remain on the stage. Work on the film began on the 7th of May 1928 and was completed on the 9th of December 1928. The premiere of the film took place on the 27th of October 1928. Status: fully lost. So this video is going to the end. Don't forget about like and subscribe for new videos. Bye and see ya!